It's Wednesday, the 21st of January. From the MEN newsroom, this is Channel M's Lunchtime News, and these are today's headlines. The horrific fall that nearly cost a rookie policeman his sight.
He thought initially he'd fallen and hit his face on the knob of his baton. He got up, carried on after what he thought was the offender, detained him, and it was then that the person who he detained said, "You better get back to hospital, mate."
The celebrations in Manchester as Barack Obama was sworn in as president.
It means America being the good guys again. It means Bush being gone. It means hope.
The fire that led to the evacuation of new mums and their babies from Hope Hospital's maternity ward. Good afternoon. First this lunchtime, a young police officer has narrowly escaped death after being pierced through the eye by a stick whilst he was chasing a suspect. 25-year-old Constable John Nash had been in the job just 6 days when the near-fatal accident happened. Kevin Duffy has more on this, but we should warn you that the report does contain images which some of our viewers may find distressing.
This hospital scan shows just how deeply the tree branch was driven into the eye socket of Police Constable John Nash. But it's this photograph that makes you ask yourself, how on earth did he survive? The encounter, which almost cost PC John Nash his life, began right here in Walton Close in Hayward. Constable Nash was chasing a suspect on foot across muddy ground one rainy December night when he slipped, fell into a bush, and that's the moment when a branch pierced his left eye. Despite all of that, Constable Nash continued the chase and arrested the suspect. The stick pierced PC Nash's eyelid, smashed a cheekbone, forced itself under his eyeball, and came to rest against his brain. Before surgeons operated to remove the stick, medical staff told John's fiancée Rebecca that the injury was life-threatening. Even if he survived, they said, he might be brain damaged or lose the sight in his eye. Incredibly, PC Nash is today recovering at home in Droylsden and hopeful that the sight in his left eye will return to normal in due course. Now, Constable Nash didn't want to appear on camera, but I did speak to him earlier by telephone at his home where he's recuperating, and he told me that what happened hasn't put him off policing. In fact, he says he can't wait to get back on the beat. Kevin Duffy for Channel M News.
Now, we all wish PC Nash a speedy recovery, and earlier one of his colleagues was talking to us about the incident.
He thought initially he'd fallen and hit his face on the knob of his baton. Because the weather conditions were atrocious. It was driving rain and muddy. He got up, carried on after what he thought was the offender, detained him, and it was then that the person who he detained said, "You better get back to hospital, mate. Look at your face." He's making what I describe as a good recovery. It was almost a miracle in terms of the fact that he didn't lose his eye, he didn't suffer any brain damage. We hope to get him back as soon as possible, but it's very much a case of getting John back to work when it's right for John.
Now, the North West has been hit harder by job losses than anywhere else in the country, according to the latest figures on unemployment. They show that here, the total number of people out of work now stands at 250,000. In the 3 months to November, it rose by 36,000, the biggest increase in the country. In our region, the unemployment rate is 7.6%. That's the second highest of all the regions and higher than the national average of 6.1%. Nationally, the jobless figure is 1.92 million, the highest it's been for more than a decade. A separate report has also been published claiming that it's women who are being hit hardest by the recession. With me to explain what these latest figures mean for our economy is Ian Kerr from Work Solutions, a company that helps businesses cut costs without cutting jobs. So, Ian, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Should we really be so surprised at the increase in unemployment figures?
I don't think so. The effects of the global credit crunch and the contraction in the international economy are affecting Manchester and Greater Manchester as they're affecting the region, the country and countries across the globe. I think the thing to remember is that Manchester's economy now is in a much stronger position than it was in the 80s and early 90s. It's a much more diverse economy. and so better able to withstand the shocks that we're all facing at the moment.
Now, as I said earlier, another report's indicating that it looks like women are particularly vulnerable in the current climate. Why is that?
I think if the figures are showing that women are suffering more than men, it's probably to do with the fact that the occupations and sectors that are being hardest hit at the moment have a heavy predomination of women in them. And so I can only imagine that that's the reason.
And what are the options available to employers who, have to make cutbacks or want to make cutbacks, but who don't necessarily want to have to lose staff?
I think the main thing to say to companies who are struggling, or indeed individuals who are under the threat of redundancy, is don't try and cope with this on your own. There is lots of advice for companies, legal advice, best practice advice in terms of how to handle a very difficult and sometimes traumatic situation. And it's the same for individuals. There are lots of packages of support out there to help individuals find new work. The main thing is to contact your local job centre or organisations like Work Solutions and really take advantage of the help that's available.
Thank you very much. Newly installed President Barack Obama wasted no time in getting down to business today after his administration requested a halt to controversial military trials at Guantanamo Bay. Headlines in today's newspapers across the world reflect the hopeful expectation which has accompanied his presidency. Yesterday, millions of people gathered in Washington, D.C. to witness his inauguration. And back across the pond, a group of Democratic Party supporters met in central Manchester to watch the ceremony.
Well, we're gathering to celebrate the inauguration of President Obama, to share this experience together, even though we're 3,000 miles away, to rejoice in what for Democrats is a great victory, a great political victory.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God?
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Young or old, we're just relishing this day. We've been waiting for it for so long. It lays to rest some of the real deep conflicts that have so inhibited and you could say even corrupted American political life. So even beyond being a Democrat and pleased that a Democrat's elected, we're pleased for the country as a whole.
Today is, and I don't mean this by exaggeration in any way, it's the culmination of everything I believe in and have spent my life working for. I grew up in New England in the 60s, and I can remember black people drinking from separate water fountains and using different lavatories and standing at the back of the trams. So for me today, this is a dream come true.
I feel at a loss for words. I'm so overcome with joy and pride, and it's the first time in 4 years that I've lived in England that I can hold my head up high and say, I am an American. It's fantastic.
It means America being the good guys again. It means Bush being gone. It means hope.
An elderly hospital patient wandered out of a ward at the Manchester Royal Infirmary in his pyjamas and walked more than 3 miles home through a snowstorm. 79-year-old Frederick Smith, who has dementia, was taken to the hospital on Sunday after he suffered what's suspected to have been a heart attack. But the next day, he managed to walk out of the building without any medical staff noticing. Mr. Smith was eventually found soaked through and confused on a road near his home in Fallowfield. A neighbour took him in, but his family later had to take their father back to the same ward for more treatment. A hospital spokeswoman apologised for the distress caused, but declined to say whether the incident was being investigated. A fire has forced 30 patients, including new mums and their babies, to be evacuated from the maternity ward of Salford Royal Hospital. The blaze started in a vending machine around 6:30 yesterday afternoon, causing thick smoke to spread from the maternity block to other parts of the hospital. Firefighters managed to extinguish the flames, but a pregnant woman did have to be given oxygen therapy. Fire investigation officers are now looking into how the blaze started. The former head teacher of a failing school in Manchester, who was made a dame for services to education, is appearing before a professional conduct committee. The financial...
Years ago, Dame Jean Else received nationwide acclaim for turning around the fortunes of Whalley Range High School. When she arrived at the girls' school in 1994, it was said to have the worst attendance in the country. But 10 years later, it was celebrating record exam results. However, Dame Jean was dismissed in 2006 after investigators found evidence of nepotism and financial irregularities at her school. Almost £200,000 was spent by Manchester City Council on internal hearings into her conduct, and during a 2-year suspension she was paid her full salary of £90,000. A panel at the General Teaching Council in Birmingham is now considering allegations about her time working at Whalley Range. The hearing is scheduled to last up to 2 days.
The financial arm of the Manchester-based cooperative group is to merge with Britannia Building Society to create a super mutual. Customers won't see any immediate change as the new partnership between Britain's biggest customer-owned banks will continue to trade under separate brands. The merged company will only take on a single brand name after a process of integration, which is expected to last up to 3 years. Still ahead on the Lunchtime News, the cellar rat making a real impact on real ale circles.
It's really bitter, very, very hoppy. It's a session beer, something that's easy to drink. You know, you can have a few pints of it in the afternoon, you know, so you can still walk out of the pub.
Welcome back to Channel M's Lunchtime News. We're here every day between 12 and 1 with all of Greater Manchester's headlines. And you can always check out our reports online at channelm.co.uk. On there right now, the man who's been deported from his home in Canada because of his disability, and a Chippy's fishy giveaway. There is such a thing as a free lunch. That's at channelm.co.uk. A young police officer has narrowly escaped death after being pierced through the eye by a stick whilst he was chasing a suspect. 25-year-old Constable John Nash had been in the job just 6 days when their fatal accident happened. Kevin Duffy has more on this, but we should warn you that the report does contain images which some of our viewers may find distressing.
This hospital scan shows just how deeply the tree branch was driven into the eye socket of Police Constable John Nash. But it's this photograph that makes you ask yourself, how on earth did he survive? The encounter, which almost cost PC John Nash his life, began right here in Walton Close in Hayward. Constable Nash was chasing a suspect on foot across muddy ground one rainy December night when he slipped, fell into a bush, and that's the moment when a branch pierced his left eye. Despite all of that, Constable Nash continued the chase and arrested the suspect. The stick pierced PC Nash's eyelid, smashed a cheekbone, forced itself under his eyeball and came to rest against his brain. Before surgeons operated to remove the stick, medical staff told John's fiancée Rebecca that the injury was life-threatening. Even if he survived, they said, he might be brain damaged or lose the sight in his eye. Incredibly, PC Nash is today recovering at home in Droylsden and hopeful that the sight in his left eye will return to normal in due course. Now, Constable Nash didn't want to appear on camera, but I did speak to him earlier by telephone at his home where he's recuperating, and he told me that what happened hasn't put him off policing. In fact, he says he can't wait to get back on the beat. Kevin Duffy for Channel M News.
What a brave man, and of course we all wish PC Nash a speedy recovery. One of his colleagues has been talking to us about the incident.
He thought initially he'd fallen and hit his face on the knob of his baton because the weather conditions were atrocious. It was driving rain and muddy. He got up, carried on after the what he thought was the offender, detained him, and it was then that the person who he detained said, "You better get back to hospital, mate. Look at your face." He's making what I describe as a good recovery. It was almost a miracle in terms of the fact that he didn't lose his eye, he didn't suffer any brain damage. We hope to get him back as soon as possible, but it's very much a case of getting John back to work when it's right for John.
One of the organisations responsible for giving out cash raised by the National Lottery for good causes is starting a push to find out how more of us would like it to be spent. The big lottery's fund's been here in Manchester asking what sort of projects should benefit from future donations, as James Webster's been finding out.
28 pence from every ticket sold is given to good causes. The Big Lottery Fund is one of the organisations that decides where it goes.
Well, I hope we'll get really strong sense today from people in and around the northwest about the big issues that they think the region's going to be facing in the period ahead, and how lottery money in particular can help. The big themes that we tend to support are around education, helping children and young people get on, healthy lifestyles, the environment, good quality surroundings for people to live in, and all sorts of charitable activity that's making a tremendous difference to the more vulnerable people in society.
Over the next 6 years, it's estimated the Big Lottery Fund will spend £2 billion nationwide, and they want to know what sort of things that money should be spent on. Since 2004, they've supported well over 9,000 projects here in the northwest. That's more than £266 million being spent around here.
It's enabled us to employ 3 full-time workers and a part-time worker to work across England to provide educational programmes, advocacy training, chances for people to come together and share their experiences, and also to develop leadership skills so that they can do something positive in their own communities.
In February this year we were at the point of closing our doors, so letting down over sort of 65 people a week. And so the Big Lottery has literally helped us to keep going.
Money's been spent on activities, self-help groups. We do different classes at the centre to improve employment skills and literacy skills. And we also take them out for fun days out, because a lot of people are in isolation and they were from a hard-to-reach group.
Thank you. The fund wants as many people as possible to log on to a website and tell them where the good cause cash should go. So the next time you're buying your lottery ticket and you want to know where the money's spent, remember, it could be you who decides. James Webster, Channel M News.
Almost 500 drivers were caught over the limit in Greater Manchester last month as part of an anti-drink drive campaign by police. More than 15,000 motorists were tested, an increase of 82%. And the number of people arrested for positive breath tests also went up by 39%. However, the percentage who were over the drink drive limit actually fell by 1% on the previous year. A jobs fair for black and minority ethnic communities was held in the centre of Manchester yesterday. It was targeted at communities underrepresented in the workforce.
Manchester is interested in getting all its residents jobs and to keep them in employment. So this is not for one group. This is for all groups in Manchester. And the council is doing everything possible it can with all the other institutions to promote job and promote employment for the people of Manchester. There are plans to keep the job fairs going, because the intention is to see that all the residents of Manchester are in employment, even within this crunch time.
I think it's a very good idea, although I feel that the teaching sector, for teachers, there isn't, well, I haven't seen anything so far, and so I feel it hasn't been represented perhaps as fully as it should be.
So it's really been quite interesting, you know. They tell you how to seek job and helping you to starting up your own business if you're required to.
Because I was unemployed and I needed a job, so I thought this would be a good idea. And I think it's really helpful. We need to urge people, younger lot, especially younger lot, to come to this kind of stuff.
Today marks the start of the campaign for Real Ale's National Winter Festival here in Manchester, in which our own City Life is taking part with a beer brewed by an unlikely contender. Beverly Walkden has more.
While most 24-year-olds could be accused of drinking too much beer, this 24-year-old is busy brewing beer. You've gone from barmaid to brewer in a short space of time. Why brew beer at your age?
Well, I started off working behind the bar in a cask ale pub, and the longer I was there, the more I learnt about the different styles of beer, the way different beers taste, and then I learnt how to look after the beer in the cellar, and the opportunity came up to brew one of my own as a one-off to sell in the pub, and I just got hooked on it.
Fantastic, and you're holding some of that beer there now. Yes. Tell us what it tastes like.
Sure, you have to ask me that.
Shall we taste it together?
Yes.
Let's taste this. It's absolutely delicious, I have to say, but I wouldn't know how to explain a beer.
It's really bitter, very, very hoppy. It's a session beer, something that's easy to drink. You know, you can have a few pints of it in the afternoon, you know, so you can still walk out to the pub.
How are you coping with all the men around you?
By producing beer that's just as good as theirs.
So you get respect there?
Yes, because I've learned so much. I mean, I'm constantly learning about beer, but as long as my standards don't slip, then they've got no excuse to say that females can't be brewers.
Now, your beer has been officially sponsored by City Life as well. Tell us how that came about.
My name was put forward by the guy that's ordering all the beer for the National Winter Ales Festival. He asked me to do the festival special, so I'm doing a one-off for those. And then I got approached by City Life, and we had a discussion and thought we'd come up with a nice Manchester bitter.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Good luck for this.
Thank you very much.
The festival itself takes place from tomorrow until Saturday. The details at the bottom of the screen. Back to the studio.
Makes me want a pint. Well, it was another crisp winter's morning, if a little frosty. So now let's take a look to see what the rest of the weather has in store for us with Michelle Eagleton.
Well, it is a very chilly day across Greater Manchester. We're seeing highs of between 7 and 8. That's really going to be the best temperatures we'll be getting, I'm afraid, today. And a lot of rain, as you can see from that picture. So do make sure that you've got that umbrella to hand. You are definitely going to need it this afternoon. We did need it most of the morning. Some heavy cloud really dominated from about 9 o'clock this morning, and then it continued into this afternoon. A little bit of a respite, though, later on this afternoon, about 2, 3 o'clock. We are going to see it really clear up somewhat. And places like Oldham, Bury and Stockport are going to see a few brighter, sunnier patches. So that's great news if you are out and about in those areas. But as you can see later on this evening, some really strong westerly breeze really creeping its way right across the region. And into tomorrow, we are going to see some more heavy downpours, I'm afraid. Friday's not too bad, a mixture of sunshine and showers. Saturday, the best day to do something if it's outdoors, because it is going to be dry and sunny. But I'm afraid the rain's back on Sunday.
You're watching Channel M's Lunchtime News. Our main headlines this afternoon. A young policeman nearly lost his life after piercing his eye in a stick in a horrific fall whilst chasing a suspect. PC John Nash had a lucky escape when the branch narrowly missed entering his brain. And a fire in a storeroom forced 30 patients, including new mums and their babies, to be evacuated from the maternity ward of Salford Royal Hope Hospital. We'll have more on those stories and any other developments of the day in our early evening news later with Andy Crane from 5. But from me and the rest of the Lunchtime team, have a very good afternoon. I'm hoping I will. Bye-bye for now.